a judiciary that was appointed by the executive. So the new constitution established the Judicial Service Commission as an independent commission that would then be mandated with the recruitment of judges. And now the recruitment of judges is public. There is a public advertisement, the interviews in public, members of the public are allowed to write a memorandum to appoint judges. So yes, we did create an independent judiciary. So what President William Ruto is doing is following the constitution. Okay. He's not doing a favor to the judiciary. It is what the law says should be the relationship between the executive and the judiciary. The judiciary should independently operate. Now, and then go further and ask yourself, people have been saying, oh, William Ruto now is working very well with the executive, with the judiciary. Remember, he was elected on an economic transformation platform. And he knows that having an independent judiciary is an economic imperative. You will not be able to grow the economy of this country if you don't have an independent judiciary. The reason why investors don't want to come to Kenya is if you have an inefficient judiciary, then investors don't want to come to a country where should they run into a dispute, it is impossible to go through the judicial process. So it's an economic imperative. So he is actually prosecuting his economic transformation plan by ensuring that you have an independent judiciary. Again, the new constitution established what we call the Judiciary Fund. Okay. The Judiciary Fund had never been, has never been activated. But I think beginning this year, the process began.
July 1st.
Yeah, it was, July 1st, at the beginning of the financial year. But no monies had already been put in that account. But that process will go because it's a pledge that the president did, in fact, make. Okay. When you talk about, sometimes there's need to be dialogue. Already, in the Constitution, the judiciary is tasked and mandated to encourage arbitration and mediation already. So that should be their first course of action, is to try and move the cases to arbitration and mediation, and I know that has been implemented. Many of the times, the judges will try and ask the parties to go to mediation. They have what they call court-annexed mediation before it does proceed. And I think the problem we had between the executive and the judiciary was one of a situation where cases were brought to court. Okay. The court interpreted the law. They were not doing anyone any favors. They interpreted the law. The law, it was found that the executive, in no less than 8 instances, had actually offended the Constitution. In some cases, the former president was named as having contravened the Constitution and the law. So when the judiciary points that out, it's not because they are against the executive. Okay. It just means they're interpreting the law the way they would interpret it with me. So if the judiciary makes a decision in a case where I'm involved against me, the judiciary is not going against me. The judiciary is interpreting the law as should. What you should do as a law-abiding citizen, and in that case what the state should have done, is obeyed the court orders. They disobeyed the court orders. Hence, the perception that there was a disagreement between the judiciary and the executive. The executive disobeyed a court order. Okay. So the judiciary had nothing to do with it. Okay. It was a disobedience of
court orders.
The court order.
Okay, Honorable Gladys, just hang on. When you mention and say that the judges or the courts rule by the Constitution, that is the fulcrum point of this discussion, the bottom line that we are having. But how that message is decoded on the other end, especially the executive, is very key. And you have said that this is an economic pledge that all the parties in the country must adhere.
An economic imperative.
And all the parties must adhere to the principle of good governance and constitutionalism. Does the political class then understand that?
You know, it's not even an understanding. Remember, all of us, when we are elected, we take an oath of office. We actually swear by the Bible or Quran or affirm that you will defend, protect, and uphold the Constitution of Kenya. And then, so first of all, there is an added responsibility. And upholding the Constitution ensures that you support the independence of the judiciary. You support the independence of Parliament as an arm. And even an ordinary citizen, including yourself, Article 3 of the Constitution obligates you to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution of Kenya. It obligates you whether you take oath or not. So first of all, that is something we should understand as Kenyans. So whether you're a politician or not,
all right.
the truth is, if you disobey a court order, you'll be held in contempt. And if you're found to be in contempt of a court order, the law will take its course. You'll be arrested and you'll be put in.
Thank you.
But it was very refreshing listening to the Chief Justice. I did attend the State of the Judiciary report handing it, and I remember that I was privileged to be. I was the first Chief Registrar to have where you are required to have the State of the Judiciary. So the first State of Judiciary report was handed over during my tenure as Chief Registrar. It was exciting to read the current report and see the progress that the judiciary has made. Particularly, I know that the progress of the judiciary had begun at the time during my tenure.
Thank you.
And then it's been carried on by Justice Maraga and now Justice
Martha Koome.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, the head of state pledged that he will adhere to court orders in the country, which he says will mark a shift or departure from the previous regime. He spoke during the State of the Judiciary annual report on Friday last week. Also, who attended the conference was his deputy, Rigathi Gachagua. Here's what they said. We apologize for that, and we'll be getting back to that soundbite when ready and upon the direction of the director. Do you have that soundbite? Okay, we'll be shortly getting back to that soundbite. But Honorable Elachi, basically it was the highlight of the day, and the President calling upon the judiciary to function as needed and within the framework of the Constitution, and saying its independence is guaranteed. Clearly, this is an assurance and a guarantee. And do you read so? Is it one that will, completely function for the Kenyan people? Because justice must be dispensed by the courts of law across the country, and they have to function within the timeline and the framework of the Constitution. Will that be the case going forward?
If you just allow me to say
let her just respond to that. I'll come to you, Honorable Gladys. Yes, Honorable Elachi, go ahead.
Okay. One of the things that we must be very careful about is that it's not just justice for us within another level. It is justice for all. So for me, the thing that we really need to work very closely with the judiciary is to ensure the mobile courts that are need to be taken to within the informal sectors. In fact, the best they can do is, I know we have one of the judges who is doing a very good program within committee and Langata Women's. And what Justice, I think it's Kamaru, doing is that he ensures and he has pushed in a program. Mm-hmm. This is a program where paralegals are now being trained within themselves, within those inmates who are in the cells, and ensuring you can come to court and defend your case, especially most of the cases of when you are appealing your case. And so it has emerged even the best program where we have now inmates who have been taken through law and they've gone through exams, and now they have degrees in law within that. And that is helping them to start also clearing. But you see, this is only one judge. So what do we do with the rest? How do we ensure these small cases, petty cases that are there? Let's say, for example, we fought. Somebody is just in the industrial area. They fought with someone on the ground, and you find that the prosecutor is not finding any witnesses, and so you drag in and drag out. We need a judge who comes in and looks at a case. I'll give you an example. I have had cases of young people in the Great North since 2017. Interesting, some of them who went to Uhuru Park and were just caught, and they have been in those remands for 4 years. By the time we were doing the case, even the judge was asking, why would you keep a case where there's no witness, you don't understand these cases? And I think there are many other young people who are just languishing in the corridors of court, wondering, where do I get a lawyer? So what the judiciary, and I know you can get a lawyer from the government is always, it's supposed to give you a lawyer when you don't have a lawyer. And so, if the judiciary is now serious about all this, can we start clearing the courts? Can we now ask ourselves, what do we do with this? Because I know the president might come in, yes, in December to pardon some. But surely we can't be waiting for the president to pardon, yet we know there are some cases the judiciary can just go through.
The CJ, just on Friday, Honorable Alachi, the CJ talked about the backlog of cases that they have dispensed with. I mean, many matters in their thousands, and gave the judiciary a percentage of more than 70% in dispensing these cases.
That's what I'm saying. You find that these are cases, maybe issues of family, land, and also maybe it's within us Parliament, and our senior here, yes, and our most senior speaker can speak about it. That is there a way? And is it okay? Because we might do it and then the judiciary comes and asks us question. That we put in a law, that the jailer can put in a law that will help to dispense many. I know you can put in a policy if you want, or regulations, but can we put in a law that says certain cases don't need to exceed 6 months? A case where people have violated, I know there's domestic violence, and that's why we are saying alternative dispute, but sometimes in cases of domestic violence, I will not really recommend so much on negotiations, because then clans and families take advantage.
Okay.
But if it has gone to court,
well, not.
Is there a way somebody can be penalized, fined, and the case is over in a span of 6 months?
Thank you.
So
okay,
that woman or that man gets his justice, but they move on as a family.
Thank you.
Yes.
Honorable Manzo, I'll come to you, and let me get this soundbite of the Chief Justice, who talked about corruption extensively during the launch of the report, and this, she said, is a matter that has been taken up by other agencies of government looking into corruption within the judiciary. Here's what she said.
But is it possible?
That in November 2021, we invited the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission to undertake a comprehensive judiciary systems audit. This systemic review of the policies, our procedures and practices of the judiciary will definitely identify the avenues and opportunities for unethical and corrupt practices so that the judiciary can work towards eliminating them.
Point earlier, but Honorable Dan Manzo, the elephant in the room, we talked about the external element here of the needed close cooperation between the executive and the judiciary, but intra, there needs to be communication from within, and this is corruption. How can that be well addressed? The CJ seems to be taking the bull by the horn, but this is deep-rooted, and it's an underlying problem in the judiciary.
It is, and just to finish on Honorable Alachi's point, you know, mediation should be encouraged. You know, from police cells, because at times police have a very simple case which they can mediate between two people, and they settle it there, but a lot of time they will prefer to take it to court, and then you end up crowding the courts unnecessarily, keeping people there unnecessarily, backlog, forcing the magistrate to write very long judgments on a matter which would have been sorted out between parties. So I think mediation should be encouraged at all levels. It really helps sort out and ease the work of judiciary. But coming to the issue of corruption, corruption happens in judiciary. At times through the networks of the lawyers and through a willing judicial officer and through, you know, cartels. Whereby a decision is killed. But a lot of times when parties want to insist on corruption, you'll find the magistrate already knows the answer of the case. You know from the evidence presented, but the litigant is so keen to pay something to get things go their way because they don't know exactly how the case will come out. And I believe that can be cited, can be spotted. And when you have a very serious Chief Justice like Martha Koome, I believe she's in touch and she's going to follow up a lot of matters. But more important, Kenyans should be allowed to speak. And there must be a forum where, without victimizing the whistleblower, information should be able to reach judiciary. Such a case, there is corruption. Such an officer, you know, things which can be verified, is soliciting for monies. And the moment that information is exposed, and the moment judicial officers, they know we are being watched, the moment they know if we are named into this, we lose our jobs, or life thereafter will be very complicated.
Okay.
Then it becomes easy for us to fight corruption in judiciary. And again, also, the independence of judiciary is very important. And that's why I'm saying their money should go out straight away from the exchequer without it having to be pushed by the executive. So you cannot have the executive seeming to be the one rescuing the judiciary. It should be an automatic thing. If judiciary have a budget, let it be funded.
Okay.
So that it doesn't look like the government is playing politics on judiciary or has now become very friendly to judiciary, and the previous regime was not friendly, or other regimes like the one cited, you know, like the day the president used to appoint the judges single-handedly. You know what it means when the president or the government has a case.
All right.
That judge is already compromised.
Thank you. Honorable Gladys, you had a point earlier. Proceed, please.
Yes, I think the point, I want us to move from this notion that that the fact that the current president has honored certain pledges to help the independence of the judiciary. For example, the appointment of the judges. Yeah. The appointment of the judges was a requirement of the law. Judges are appointed by the judicial service, are interviewed and nominated by the Judicial Service Commission, and the president does a ceremonial event of approving, of signing the Gazette notice that gazettes them to be judges and swears them in. So he has his role. His role is not to interview or interrogate judges. What happened in the issue of the 6 judges, there's so many judges that the president refused to appoint at that time, was that he's alleged that he had received a report from the National Intelligence Service that certain judges were not suitable. The issue is, the law says, if you have such information, you petition the Judicial Service Commission to establish, to recommend the establishment of a tribunal if that it's found that those allegations are correct, but not for the president to take it upon himself and do the job of the Judicial Service Commission and the tribunal at once. So it was a disobedience of the law, period. It was not, and so what President William Ruto has done now was simply adhere to the law. Okay. It is not his place to decide who becomes judge. It is decided by the Judicial Service Commission, and the Judicial Service Commission has done, had already done that.
On the question of the CJ, talking
about corruption. I think it's something that must be loaded. The issue of removing corrupt practices within the judiciary has to be a continuous process. And many systems will have to be put in place to change that. It is good that they have undertaken an audit. I know that various steps can be done. And I will give an example of the collection of fines, traffic fines that used to happen. We had the example of the Kibera law courts and the Milimani law courts. During my tenure, we established something called Faini Chap Chap. So what happened is that people got instant fines. Immediately, the collection of fines in traffic cases in Kibera law courts at that time moved from 50,000 a day to almost 500,000. Why? The money that was, the fines were being paid and directly to the court as opposed to being paid to police officers and other side people. So you can actually use technology to actually stop corruption. The other challenges that the judiciary normally will have is that at the registry clerks sell the court dates. So basically, you'll be told the diary is full until next year. And if you paid some money, then you got an earlier date. That's what used to happen. If you digitize the diary, for example, then it means it removes any human intervention in obtaining of the diary. It's the way you apply for a visa appointment. You go online, you pick a date that is vacant, and you click on it, and that becomes your date. So nobody has to do you any favors or interaction with anyone to get it done. Putting CCTV cameras in our registries, in our corridors, that will also be able to, that will help. So it's a sensitization of the entire justice system. They have a very good strategy. I have had occasion to see it on how to deal with corruption in the judiciary. And I think it will be weeded out from time to time. There is also, because police officers bring remandees to the court, and sometimes you find that you know, they don't bring them on time, so the cases can't proceed. So sometimes you find remandees having to bribe police officers so that they can actually be taken to court.
Thank you.
Again, that can be cured by making sure police officers wear body cameras so that we can be able to see what they are doing at all times, anytime they're interacting with the public. And that is where the country should be going.
Okay.
So any traffic police officer or any police officer interacting with the public must wear a body camera.
Okay.
Then that way they will be held to account.
So transparency and accountability. So ladies and gentlemen, let's now take a look at some of the tweets and sample them. The hashtag on Twitter, just some, as we head towards the tail end of the broadcast, and do the others towards the culmination of the broadcast. Here's what this is saying, and only in Kenya that a government pays 35 billion Kenya shillings to ghost workers, and things look and go normal to the responsible authorities like the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Kenya. It's like this not of much concern or little concern, and the next government will do the same. That's according to Babu Michael 1 on Twitter. He still says, I haven't heard of continuous audit reports about the judiciary. Does this mean there is no wastage of funds? Does it mean that the integrity of the judicial officials is of highest level, or there is some restrictions in that direction? Bob Otieno Owino says the harmony between the executive and the judiciary is a healthy thing to our country, especially to poor Kenyans seeking justice. Kudos to the President, William Ruto, unlike last regime where they were pulling in different directions. Godi Barasawere says we should be able to see and feel the judicial independence through expeditious, fair and just judgments. The high and mighty and caveats people in the society found on the wrong side of the law must be brought to book. And Remy Butia says Kenya's constitution calls for a justice system that is accessible, affordable and comprehensible to ordinary people, and that dispenses justice fairly, speedily and without discrimination, fear or favor. Kipngeno Headboy says, so far the common hustlers have nothing to celebrate. The big guys or wigs are busy positioning themselves ready to eat from the national cake. By the look of things, it might even take time for the common mwananchi to start getting morsels. And the last one here from Esawe says, we now expect the judiciary to clear all the cases now that they have judges. The president have promised to increase the budget by 3 billion Kenya shillings. They have no reason why cases must now reduce and Kenyans must get justice. I beg your pardon, thanks. That's according to some of your tweets on the hashtag Daybreak, at Citizen TV Kenya, and at Ayub Abdikadir. And so in regards to the independence of the judiciary that we talked about and the cases of the backlog that the judiciary dispensed with, here is a soundbite from the Chief Justice Martha Koome on the ruling in regards to the election petition 2022 and some of the wordings that the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition political party questioned after the court dealt with the matter before the president was later sworn in as the 5th president of the republic. Here's what the CJ said.
Those are English terms. Perhaps they angered some people, but they were not meant to offend anybody. It was just an expression of the finding of the evidence that was presented before the court. There were some forms which were brought from 34As, relying on the evidence which was hearsay. Nonetheless, the court went ahead to look at the original forms 34As to compare with those forms which were arranged to have been interfered with. And the court found that those forms were actually photoshops. The court went ahead to ask for the boxes, the ballot boxes, from all the polling stations where those allegations emanated from, where there was said to be interference. And Kenyans watched when scrutiny was done of those original forms in the boxes, comparing them with the original forms that were brought by IEBC. That exercise took no less than 36 hours. And that's why perhaps the court said, we did all this, but it turned out to be a wild goose chase. Right. So if you read the judgment, it will explain why each and every term was used.
is the third Chief Justice and had the election petition 2022 and defended the court's determination of the matter. Honorable Elachi, all the same though, at the same time in 2017, it was the opposition that celebrated the independence and the ruling by the court after it nullified the president's re-election then on the 1st of September. Now the shoe was on the other foot. It was Raila Odinga and Martha Karua who said they respect the court ruling, but they were not happy with the wording of the court and the vocabulary that the judiciary had used. For example, it said that although we vehemently disagree with their decision today in regard, we respect the outcome by the court. However, there was unduly exaggerated language to refute our claims as argued by our lawyers in court. All the same though, whatever rulings that they make, they are still the punching bag.
But well, there will be the punching bag because now this is political. You see, that is the challenge with politics, that when you're not content, and I think what many Kenyans were asking is the wording, because, you know, after this ruling, and my learned friends here will agree that it's a learning process that goes now back to class. And so every student will want to really go through this judgment and learn a lot from it. So maybe the wordings of hot air, maybe those are, you see when you go and look at it in the dictionary,
yes,
then maybe that is why it elicits debate or all that. But in the end of the day, let me just say this. 2017, so we went through a nullification. I think what the Supreme Court was trying to do is now to clean itself and say, look, in 2017 we went through this.
okay,
This is how the country ended up to have all these things. And so this time, we just have to look at facts. And by the way, in all due respect, I know many people will get very disappointed. The presidential election is done at the constituency level. And I'm hoping going forward, every presidential candidate will always learn those lessons. That you cannot, in the end, if things have happened, and they happened at the constituency, you see, even if you do everything at Bomas, there's very, very little. I doubt whether you'll change anything. Because you decided as a country, you will do this, you will use biometric, you will come and send the elections on from the constituency directly to your server of your presidential candidate. Okay. And I remember even at that time, whether it is 250, it was 2 days or 3 days, even when people were doing everything, those results were there and there.
Okay.
And so sometimes, and that's why I kept on saying to myself, this is now me, let me speak as me, that you see, you cannot go back to an institution where in 2017 they gave you an opportunity to go and to go and do things right. Meaning, you were told in the ruling of 2017 that indeed if you find the referee who is your chairman,
yes,
has done wrong, you need to remove. We didn't. Then you were told you have to follow process, due process, that it's not just about winning, it is about your process from the beginning. And so you'll find yourself in a lot of challenges when now you're going back to the same court where I remember my Deputy Chief Justice
yes,
felt very disappointed, went through a lot. And so you come back to me again with the same mistakes you have done again, okay, same mistakes. Because here now, you have this mistake, you have this, and you want again justice from me. I have been saying this, and I will repeat, so that they don't, I am very consistent, so that we get it right in the next.
Thank you.
That it is important to just know it is from the constituency where you make things right, okay, before even they go where they want.
And the results of the constituency across the 290 are final.
Yes.
Okay, Honorable Gladys, I'll come to you. Honorable Dan Manzo.
Yes.
Is that satisfactory to the lawyers and the camp that you subscribe to, Azimio?
I don't think so. I still believe that the language used, words like hot air, were excessive. And you know this young lawyer, Julie Soweto, ordinarily the judiciary encourages young lawyers to be at their best. But when you use disparaging language to such a young lawyer who really worked hard to present what she could present, that language really, no matter how much you try to clean it up, doesn't look right and doesn't sound right. So I believe in the future, when dealing with such a sensitive matter, which is a matter of public interest, it's not about Julie Soweto or the other lawyers appearing. It's a much bigger, you know, calling. So I still believe the language was wanting, and whoever drafted that, the rest should have rectified that, because it looks like you are almost being partisan. You are beginning to say, you are beginning to show your political inclinations, because even the judges voted anyway. So I think when you are handling a matter like that in future, and we don't take that explanation, actually the only honorable thing to do when you use such a language is to apologize for it and everybody moves on.
But she clearly said that in the text of our final ruling, which was detailed, you can clearly see why we use that vocabulary. She was very clear in her
There is no justification for such language. Okay. And you see, for honorable people like judges, if you go wrong on something or you have used an unfair language, I think it is only fair to apologize for it, because we are bringing up young people, we are role modeling young people. Others will become judges in future when these particular ones exist. But I want to agree with the Honorable Elachi. You win or lose an election, not even at the constituency level, but at the polling station. This is where you have engines. This is where the first tally does place. You know, the constituency tally is a secondary tally. So before things leave the polling station, you have either lost or won in that particular polling station.
Is that a strategy that you considered? And
we may have had our own shortcomings on that.
Okay.
Yes, and even any politician, whether presidential or an MCA or a member of parliament or a senator or governor, you win or lose your election at the polling station.
Yeah.
That is where you win or you lose. So if you get it right at the polling station,
thank you.
You will get it right at the constituency, you will get it right at the national tally.
Thank you.
So I think that is something we should really look at. I still don't agree with the explanation of the Chief Justice.
Okay.
I cannot use bad language against the judiciary myself. I may have a platform they don't have, like the floor of the House.
Okay.
But every time somebody tries to attack the judiciary on the floor of the House, I'm on intervention. I'm on a point of order. You can't do this because they are not here to defend themselves. The
disagreement as clearly stated in the letter by your principals in the coalition party, but nonetheless, that is the ruling by the Supreme Court, and they said we have to move on. Honorable Gladys Boschele, I'm sure you
Yes, I just want to help out on this.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I have gone to the Oxford Dictionary,
okay.
The meaning of hot air. It's a noun. The meaning in the Oxford Dictionary is empty talk that is intended to impress. And they give an example of a sentence. They say they dismiss the theory as a load of hot air. So it is actually in the Oxford Dictionary. Okay. It is not disparaging language at all. It is a descriptive language that is in the English dictionary. Yeah.
So nothing offensive about it?
Yeah, check. I've just checked the Oxford Dictionary.
Okay, just hang on.
The context.
No, allow me to speak.
The context.
Let her express herself, and then I'll come to Honorable Elachi. Final remarks, I'll come to
you.
Yes,
so it's English language.
Yep.
It's not disparaging language. The dictionary doesn't describe it as that. It shows that it's a descriptive language that can be used, and it's proper English. It's in the Oxford Dictionary. And as you say, if you read the detailed judgment, you can actually be able to see it. And I think, I mean, they've mentioned on the issue that that the judiciary is obligated by law. When actually the meaning of a judgment, the dictionary meaning of a judgment is the reasons for arriving at a specific decision. Therefore, a judgment gives reasons for each point of determination. If you remember in that decision, the Supreme Court isolated 9 issues of determination. And they pronounced themselves on each of those issues. They gave the facts that relate to that issue. They gave the law that attaches to that issue. They then gave their interpretation of their determination of the law in regard to those facts, and therefore came up with a determination. Then they gave an explanation. So it is there for everyone to read. It's not rocket science or something that we can debate. The judgment speaks and gives the reasons. Talking about, many people many times will be unhappy with the decision of the courts, but as this country is not a lawless country. We're not a banana republic. We have a law. We have a supreme law. We have various acts of parliament that are passed by parliament and only interpreted by the courts. So you can't blame the courts for an interpretation. After all, the law was made in parliament in consultation with the people and on behalf of the people by people that persons elected. I was just reading here in the newspaper about the Kenya Airways striking pilots. They are also in disobedience of a court order. A court order declared their impending strike at that time as illegal. But today, they are on strike and risking the security and the economy of this country. Okay. Yes. So there's consequences when people disobey court orders.
The beauty about court rulings and the independence of what you have talked about is that it's a swinging pendulum. It will be on your side, it will be on the other party's side. In 2017, you were an aggrieved party. You disagreed with the court after it nullified the president's re-election when you were a member party of the Jubilee.
But we obeyed the court order and went back to elections. We went back, campaigned, and then got elected. Whereas the other side disobeyed the court order by calling for a boycott of the election.
That was the repetition on the 26th of October.
We don't want to leave this show with people thinking that they have a choice to disobey court orders.
Court orders must be obeyed at all costs.
They must be obeyed, yes.
The responsibility I also bear as a professional is that I disseminate what's right and in defense of the Constitution that we all have and underpins how we live and incorporate amongst ourselves, because Kenya is a cocktail of ethnicities. Yes, Honorable Elachi, final comments from you, and Honorable Manzo, I'll begin with you.
Well, just to say this, I want to say it in an African context, that when I agree it's an English word, but I was just saying, you see, as Africans, English is not our, we took it from Britain, let me say that way. That when you turn it into a Kiswahili word, then it gives you a very different impression. And I think that is why many people were angered, because they were not looking at it in English the way my speaker is saying, yes. For us, we look at it in English. But now when you go back home, they translate it in Kiswahili in a very different way. And we should appreciate our culture. Kwani sisi si wazungu. And that is what has angered, I think, many of them. For us who appreciate and say English is, yes, our second language, and we appreciate it, we will take it rightfully and move on. But for those who translate it in Swahili,
thank you,
and they are the majority, they find it very differently. But I just want to also thank Murkomen, my CS, for bringing this out. But to say this, I would want him to now look at the wagons. Because there's no way you can tell me those wagons were worth the money of Kenya. Because we have to look at this SGR now, looking at it the way I know Cote d'Ivoire has done an SGR within the time we were doing an SGR. Ethiopia did, Tanzania, let us look at, did we get worth of the money that we were supposed to get? And did we get, because one of the things I've realized, value, even at the airport, as he goes there to deal with pilots, please, I want to ask my CS, can you deal with our airport? Because it is the most substandard airport based on the money that we spent to build that airport.
We talked about that issue on transparent about this.
Yes, I really want to say that you are free to disagree with the judgment. You respect it, but you disagree with it. And secondly, on the issue of pilots, I think it's a very, very sensitive matter and it must be handled in the right way. History has shown us mistreatment of pilots elsewhere has ended up in a disaster. So I believe this is a matter whereby whether there was a court order or no court order, sometimes you must balance a court order with legitimate expectation and with what is most important for Kenyans. I think the satisfaction of a pilot goes a long way into a good service to Kenyans. You see, we had an air crash where that pilot did a lot of work to save lives. You know, that's a pilot who needs credentials, because it would have been worse. And all of us, the judges, Kenyans, end up at one point or another in a plane. So, including Honorable Murkomen himself and the president.
Thank you.
Have just been flown to pilots wherever they have gone in Europe. So please, let's take care of these pilots.
Thank you.
Let's not be hard on them. Let's have a mid ground and a win-win situation for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I think I can weigh in on the issue of the pilots. I think the pilots must obey the court orders.
Okay.
The pilots should be sensitive to the fact that Kenya Airways reported a 60+ billion loss just the other day. They have received over 60 billion from government in the last 3 years. Actually, essentially, Kenya Airways is bankrupt. So if the pilots are going on strike, when you work in a bankrupt company, what are you exactly saying to Kenyans? So they should wake up to the reality that, in fact, if Kenya Airways was not a national carrier, and it was an ordinary client who came to me and said, what should I do in these circumstances? I would have told them, declare bankruptcy and wind down the company.
Okay.
Yes, it's just that it's a national carrier, and therefore it bears our flag. But the pilots should wake up. The company is bankrupt. You have no money. So when you demand for money from a company that has no money, you actually risk just losing the entire company. In any case, I would encourage that, and I'm happy that there is an Air Force pilot training school that has been established. They are going to train more pilots so that we never have to be held ransom by a small group of pilots.
Thank you. Your time is all appreciated.
There's many Kenyans who can be trained
well
as
noted.
pilots.
A point taken into account. Thank you. Honorable Beatrice Alachi is the Dagoretti Member of Parliament. Thank you for your time. Good morning. Dan Manzo, Senator Makueni County. Your time is all appreciated. Thank you. Honorable Gladys Boschole is the woman MP Uasin Gishu County as well. She doubles up as the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Thank you for your time and company. It isn't easy waking up, and thank you for making time and waking up with us here on Daybreak. And thank you to you too for watching the broadcast. Up next is Sports Monday. However, though, Willis is an aggrieved party. The Red Devils saw red at Villa Park. Arsenal again regained the top spot, courtesy of the demolition of the bridge. Steve Shitera is also another aggrieved party. Fred Arocho is also among the team that will be here. I doubt whether there's an Arsenal fan in that bench, but they'll be telling you more about events that happened. Also in the North London Stadium in the City of London in England, where the Reds Liverpool overcame Spurs Tottenham at the North London Stadium in the United Kingdom. Thank you for waking up with us here on Daybreak. Your time is all appreciated. The hashtag on Twitter was Daybreak. The SMS code was 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya at Ayub Abdikadir Abdi. We'll see you tomorrow morning at the same time by the grace of God. Till then, good morning.